All right, sixth grade. So I'm going to do something a little different that I actually did last year when we went remote with the seventh graders this year. However, I'm going to try and start it now. That way, we're still going over the information that you guys are doing. So it's not me providing the answers, it's actually you and your classmates providing the answers. So we are actually on week 8 this week. However, this is reviewing information from last week, which is week 7. So it's going to be like the week before recap video. All right, so the first thing we looked at was our poem Oranges. So just to recall our poem, I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to look at some different things that maybe we were talking about. So the first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighed down with 2 oranges in my jacket. December. Frost cracking beneath my steps, my breath before me, then gone. As I walked towards their house, in one of whose porch lights burned yellow night and day in any weather, a dog barked at me until she came out pulling her gloves, face bright with rouge. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street, across a used car lot, a line of newly planted trees, until we were breathing before a drug store. We entered a tiny bell, bringing a saleslady. Down a narrow aisle of goods, I turned to the candies tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in the eyes, a smile starting at the corners of her mouth. I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket, then an orange, and I set them quietly on the counter. Then I looked up, and the lady's eyes met mine and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissed past, fog hanging like old coats between the trees. I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap her chocolate. I peeled my orange, and it was so bright against the gray of December that from some distance someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hand. All right, the first thing we need to point out that you and your classmates pointed out is what person is this poem written in? So first, second, or third? Well, in the very beginning, we see the first time I walked with a girl, I was 12. So this actually takes place in first person point of view. Okay? Then we need to decide what is our setting? Well, is it past, present, or future? Well, there's a few things we can talk about. The first time I walked with a girl. So this tells us right here that our author or speaker is a lot older than 12 currently. So this tells us it's past. Also, we can talk about how the porch light burned yellow night and day. So that kind of means that those were maybe like a lit porch light instead of a light bulb. So that can give us that it's past. Also, our candy cost a dime. Candy now is about like $1.20, right? So this shows us it's in the past, okay? So we know that it's first person. We know it's told in the past. We don't know exactly what year, but that's okay because we know it was still in the past. However, we need to decide where's our setting. So it actually takes place mainly, the main setting is outside in December. That's December here, at a drugstore, because that's where this whole thing happened with this girl and this boy. So when thinking about it, you need to think about the boy and girl's relationship. So our speaker and the girl's relationship. Well, he said that I took the girl's hand in mine. He also picked her up at her house, okay? So as I walked towards her house, the light in the corner eyes of her smiles, right? So this tells us that maybe they like each other or maybe they're boyfriend and girlfriend. However, that he's noticing her, he's picking her up and he's buying her chocolate, okay? So they are not siblings. Then we need to talk about the lady behind the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Well, let's think about it. What was it all about? All about? Well, according to Nathan said that the woman behind the counter realizes that it wasn't about him. It was about making his girl happy. That is perfect, Nathan. That was an awesome answer. That really tells us that the woman didn't want to embarrass him. Okay, she wanted to make sure that he knew that that's okay. She will accept a nickel and she will also accept the orange because he wanted to make that girl happy. So that's a very good point of view. And then we need to figure out what our orange actually symbolizes. And I threw this question out there before I actually talked about symbolism because that was where I wanted to just see what we already knew. Okay, and Nathan put perseverance. Notice that perseverance has nothing to do with that orange. However, it is something that he thinks symbolizes because the speaker did not give up with his girl. Okay, so then let's go back to our story. So, first thing we had to find were similes. Well, similes are comparing two things using like graphs. So I turned candies cured like bleachers. That's a simile meaning that the candy was stacked. On our last stanza, fog hanging like coats beneath the trees. Well, that just shows us that our fog is thick. It tells us about the gloom. The fog is like low to the ground, so it's kind of hard to see, okay? Then we need to go through and we needed to find metaphors. Well, I peeled my orange that was so bright against the gray of December that from some distance someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hands. This is actually comparing the orange to how bright it is, and then it's also taking it a step further by saying it's a fire in their hands, okay? So that's where it's comparing it. So that means that orange maybe is very ripe, it's ready to eat. Also, that our atmosphere is very dark and gloomy. It's like a Pittsburghy wintry night, right? And it's showing us that that orange is so bright. Then we need to look at our sensory details. Well, sensory details are giving us our adjectives that they are describing more information, things that you can visualize with your five senses: see, touch, taste, smell. So, for example, frost cracking beneath my steps, before and me, then gone. That shows us that you guys have walked to school before, that when you walk on that snow, it's like crack, 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 or like crunch, 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 and then you see your breath in the air and then it's gone, right? So that is our sensory detail there. Another good sensory detail is a few cars hissing past, okay? This actually could have been personification, but personification is not part of our choices that we had. Therefore, it would be used as a sensory detail because you can hear the cars passing by. All right, so let's go back to our analysis. So, short answers, okay? This is by Porter, and it was very well written. The author uses characterization through speech, thoughts, effects on others, and actions and looks of the character. In the space below, explain a character's trait. A character trait is an adjective to describe a character or the speaker in origins and explain how the author shows the trait. Then use evidence to support your answer. Therefore, I should just be able to look at your work and see quotation marks, and here I do. So, Porter says that our speaker, which has no name, is our pronoun he. He is kind. That is a word to describe him. The text states, here's your sentence starter. That's what you need. I fingered a nickel in my pocket. Then later in the poem, the text states she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime. So he actually put two evidence in there. This shows that he couldn't afford the chocolate, but he buys it anyway, trading it with an orange. He's kind because he tries to buy something he couldn't afford. And that's very well written from Porter. Okay, so he gives two pieces of evidence and explains how this evidence supports that he is kind. So very nice work, Porter. All right, so let's go to symbolism. Symbolism was a little confusing for you guys. However, a symbol is something that represents something else. So this is an actual heart. However, it represents or means love, right? So that's something very simple. It represents our love. So let's look at our ones here. So we have a picture of a fire. But you should not have any words about fire for symbolism, okay? Jackson says it's a sense of hope. Okay, that's really great because you can use fire to, do spirituals or rituals or things like that. Also, if you have watched Frozen 2, the little gecko, he's actually on fire and he runs around and actually lights the whole forest on fire. So it could also mean destruction. All right, the second object is the sun. Jackson says life, influence, strength. Very great. It's the brightest star in the sky. So therefore, strength. Very important. Life. The sun comes up every single day. So every day you are still alive. You are having a new day. A tree. Nurturing energies. Very good. Trees need, you know, sunlight, water. They need to be nurtured just like we do. Also, we have like family trees or tree of life. And even in our story 11, Rachel compares herself to growing older to a tree. That's what that symbolizes. That's its alternative representative meaning. A diamond, health, long life, heart health. So yeah, or you could say wealth, right? Diamonds are very rare. They have love to them. People use diamonds to get engaged. Or an hourglass, a human existent of fleeting, which is awesome. Running out of time. Human existent, running out of time. Okay, so those are Jackson's reasons that he symbolized. Now to go to our two stories, Ray says that in 11, a red sweater symbolizes problems and obstacles in her life or a foolish mistake. This is perfect. She compares this red sweater to a big red mountain. Well, a big red mountain isn't easy to climb. It's a huge obstacle. So this is an obstacle she has to overcome. Plus, she's also very sad, okay? And she's very embarrassed. So this would also symbolize frustration because she knows it's not hers. She's not able to speak up. So she's very frustrated and she ends up putting it on. So very nice work, Ray. From Dennis, Dennis says that our oranges, notice it does not represent money. It is used for money. However, it represents happiness, success, because he was able to buy that girl his chocolate. He was happy. It also can symbolize love because he used everything he had, his nickel and his orange, to buy that girl a piece of chocolate. So very well done, Dennis. So talking about symbolism, let's go back to the poem. And it says here that I I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. Well, think about it. If you're sitting there and you're playing with something in your pocket, right, and you don't have enough money, you are very what? Think about it. This symbolizes that you are, or he is, nervous. Okay? So that's another piece of symbolism inside of our poem. Just like how you guys, if you are nervous, you maybe twirl your hair or, you know, uh, your leg bounces up and down or your face gets red, right? So there's symbolism in everything that we have read. So let's look at our two stories together. Connor states that the point of view for both is that it is in first person, which is correct. They both use I, they're both telling a story about themselves. What effect do sensory details and figurative language have on the text Oranges in 11? Well, Connor says both texts are more interesting and they have more details. There's a lot of similes that are used in two stories and describe sensory details that add interest. Very good. It actually, and also to adding interest, it gives us insight to our character's feelings. If we didn't have those similes, metaphors, those sensory details, our story would be a paragraph and it would be quick because it would be straight to the point. So it's giving us those details, it's telling us more about our character's feelings. So, how are both the speakers in 11 and Oranges similar? And what is the speaker's conflict? Well, the speaker and the stories are similar because they both put on are put in awkward situations. Rachel's conflict was that it was her birthday and she had to put on an ugly red sweater that wasn't hers. The boy's conflict in Oranges was that he did not have enough money to pay for the chocolate bar. So both of them were put in these embarrassing situations, okay? So that's great. Now, what is the speaker's conflict? Connor tells us that, her birthday, she had to put on the sweater, she was accused that it was hers, and that he in Oranges didn't have enough money to buy the chocolate. Notice that it's not a chocolate bar, it's just one tiny piece of chocolate. There's a difference, okay? Just to make sure that you're clear about that. And the last thing is, what is a common theme between Oranges and what can you learn from the text? So Connor says the theme of the stories is that the character have to overcome some sort of conflict. Some good things come out of bad situations. Very good. So in 11, even though the story was mostly negative, she was able to see how she can grow to maybe become older and she learned more about herself, right? In our poem Oranges, he didn't have enough money, but he was still able to trade and get his girl that he likes a piece of chocolate. So some good things come out of bad situations. So a theme is something that you should